Hi everyone, I am continuing my research on music performance anxiety in the choral adolescent musician. My discussion responses and questions from my last presentation asked a lot of questions about coping with performance anxiety and how to assess it, and so that's where I put the main focus of this presentation. The last presentation included an article by Boucher and Ryan assessing performance stress in the very young musician, and they found that students as young as 3 and 4 years old could experience performance anxiety in a musical setting. Fem and Schmidt analyzed adolescent musicians and found that many of them, actually most of them, reported to having music performance anxiety, and I think the most interesting finding was that many of them suggested and asked for more guidance and instruction on coping with anxiety. Ryan and Andrews investigated adult choral singers and semi-professional choirs. Kind of the same experience. Most of them responded that they had music performance anxiety, and they responded that conductors have a large, heavy influence on the amount of performance anxiety experienced at a specific performance. In our discussions on our textbook, developing a questionnaire or inventory or survey has been a hot topic, so this kind of fits into that as well. The article is titled Development and Validation of a Music Performance Anxiety Inventory for Gifted Adolescent Musicians. This is by Osborne and Kenny and was published in 2004. The literature review suggested or stated that there was a strong relationship between music performance anxiety and standard anxiety measures like state trait anxiety and social phobias. So those are already existing known relationships. Out of the 20 measures and inventories that were already in existence, only 3 of them assessed cognitive, behavioral, and physiological components of music performance anxiety. And so if you're assessing for music performance anxiety, you want to make sure you're assessing for all of the different components. All the measures that had been created at that point were created for adults or for specific research studies, and therefore were not usable by anyone else for any other studies. The current study that is seeking validation is the Music Performance Anxiety Inventory for Adolescents. It's the adolescent version of the Kenny Music Anxiety Inventory, which is used to test many adults on music performance anxiety and assess the levels and if anxiety is present or not. Kenny is the creator and developer of that inventory, and if you notice, she is also one of the researchers in this study, so that shows that she's very experienced and knowledgeable in the subject. The purpose of this study is to investigate the factor structure, internal reliability, construct, and divergent validity of the new questionnaire titled the Music Performance Anxiety Inventory for Adolescents. In order to do this, they had to run a couple of different analyses. I'm going to briefly run through each one just so you see the process of creating a questionnaire. The first analysis was to develop the scale of the MPAIA. In order to do this, they had 37 Year 9 and 10 students from Australia take the new questionnaire, and they answered on a 7-point Likert scale. So it would have a statement like, I feel alienated by my music performance anxiety, and they would have to answer yes to no, basically on a 7-point scale. After this analysis, a few modifications were made. They deleted 3 items, and if I remember correctly, at this point they went from a 7-point Likert scale to a 5-point Likert scale, making it a little more relatable to the students. So from this point forward, they're using the modified exam. Analysis 2 and 3 used the same data to run separate statistical analyses. 298 students from performance high schools in inner Sydney took the new questionnaire, the state trait anxiety inventory, and the social phobia and anxiety inventory. If you remember from the literature review, there's already a stated relationship between standard anxiety measures and music performance anxiety. So this analysis 2 studies the factor structure. Analysis 3 studies the internal reliability of the new test based on the previous found relationships. Analysis 4 used the results from Analysis 2 and determined the construct validity of the new questionnaire. The State Trait Anxiety Inventory provided baseline levels of trait anxiety, and the Social Phobia Anxiety Inventory measured social anxiety. The final and fifth analysis took 64 students, and they took a number of questionnaires. The Kenny Music Performance Anxiety Inventory, which is the adult version of the questionnaire at hand, the Youth Self-Reporting Externalizing Scale, the Social Phobia Anxiety Inventory, the State Trait Anxiety Inventory, and the Children's Depression Inventory in order to establish construct validity, which establishes like the things that they're asking. Are those the right questions? Are they studying and asking the things to study the real music performance anxiety? The results, reliability analysis demonstrated that the new questionnaire is a psychometrically robust measure with a very good internal consistency. There was a moderate relationship between music performance anxiety and social phobia. There was a modest positive relationship between trait anxiety and music performance anxiety, and there was a strong situational effect in the self-reporting of subjective experiences. All of this supports previous research and proves that the new questionnaire and inventory is reliable and valid. So going back to our textbook discussions, it is quite a process, but it is possible with the use of previous questionnaires and inventories and a lot of research. Moving forward with coping with anxiety, the next article is titled Psychological Intervention Reduces Self-Reported Performance Anxiety in High School Music Students. Braden, Osborne, and Wilson published this article in 2015. If you notice, Diana Osborne was also one of the researchers in the first study. She's a very prominent and prevalent researcher in the field of music performance anxiety, especially dealing with students' adolescents. So the literature, along with stating many of the things that we've already talked about in regard to performance anxiety and its factors, she talks about coping with anxiety. And so the most promising intervention techniques involve a combination of cognitive and behavioral techniques. Behavioral techniques are like relaxing, breathing techniques, and those types of things. Cognitive techniques are a bit different, and research with adult musicians demonstrated that cognitive reconstruction techniques challenge self-defeating task-irrelevant thought patterns and replace them with more adaptive and realistic views, and that significantly reduces levels of music performance anxiety. So what we're trying to do here is take adolescents and see if that works with them as well. So we took 62 female instrumental students, and a control group did not undergo any treatment, and the treatment group went through 8 weeks of the Unleash Your Potential program, which is a cognitive and behavioral treatment program that I will go into detail in about a second. The students performed for judges and took the new inventory that we just learned about, the Music Performance Anxiety Inventory for Adolescents, at the beginning and the end of a program. So the first week of the Unleash Your Potential program, that was developed by Brandon and Ivins in 2009. The first week talked about peak performance, being the boss of your own thinking, and personal strength. So those are cognitive techniques. Week 2, goals, goal setting, and motivation. Week 3 is success, self-talk, feelings, affirmation. So far we've dealt mostly with cognitive skills. Week 4 goes into behavioral skills like routines, relaxation, self-talk, stress reduction, mental imagery, mental rehearsal, and visualization. Week 6, stress management and well-being. Week 7, focus, flow, and performing in the zone. And week 8 talks about dealing with setbacks, loss, disappointment, resilience, coping, and positive thinking. So as you can see, it's quite the mixture of cognitive and behavioral techniques that really complete this program. The results suggested that the 8-week Unleash Your Potential program is effective in reducing self-rated music performance anxiety in adolescents. And so using these techniques, the students were able to self-rate their anxiety at a lower level. The reduction was sustained after a 2-month period. The researchers had a follow-up where they gave another performance and took the test, the new questionnaire again, and the reduction was held out for that long, stating that this type of program and treatment could have long-term effects. Something that I found interesting was that the intervention did not result in fewer judge ratings of behavioral manifestations or better performance quality. However, it was noted that the judges did not give high ratings of behavioral manifestations in the first performance. And that kind of makes, or the researchers suggested that perhaps we think we show our anxiety a lot more than we do, and kind of had a floor effect because there wasn't a high rating to begin with. But that type of cognitive behavioral program was successful in reducing music performance anxiety. The next article is titled "The Effectiveness of a Multimodal Concept of Audition Training for Music Students in Coping with Performance Anxiety." It was published in 2016. The literature review stated that cognitive and psychodynamic therapies have a positive effect on music performance anxiety, like we just studied a second ago. Working on music performance anxiety has a self-reinforcing and confidence-boosting effect on future performances. The researchers here suggest that if you have a positive performance and you have a positive outlook on your previous performance, that your anxiety will reduce because you've had a good experience in the past. Musicians have higher music performance anxiety during solo or audition settings. So this research article mainly focused on audition settings because they are very high tension because you're being judged by another fellow musician. The purpose was to help students cope with music performance anxiety and to improve the quality of musical performance to decrease the amount of performance anxiety in the future. The method used 13 music students, 8 of whom underwent 14 weekly sessions set up like a seminar. During that time, they gave and received feedback from their professor and peers, watched their videos of performances, had opportunities for better performances. And during that time, they were given multiple methods of performance anxiety coping strategies. So, they would watch their own performance, they would be able to see how they did, learn to be okay with that performance, and then they would have another opportunity to perform. So they were given also mental strategies like relaxation techniques and self-talk and those types of things, and then the students were able to choose which method worked the best for them. Participants auditioned and self-reported music performance anxiety at the beginning and end of the treatment period. So the results suggested that anxiety prior to the performance could be reduced through a multimodal intervention. They used the word multimodal because different methods were introduced to the students during the time, and the students were able to choose the method that worked the best for them. Students were more pleased with their performances with the use of positive cognitive strategies. So they were able to focus on the positive of their performance and get rid of the negative through self-talk and positive reinforcement strategies that were given during the seminars. So it was found that this could be very successful in an audition, which is easily translatable to performance because those are even typically less tense and less stressful on the musician. External judges reported better musical performance quality, but no difference in physical signs of anxiety. Kind of similar to the last study, there was a floor effect in the physical signs of anxiety, and they had a better musical performance because they had a more positive outlook due to multiple performance experiences with the opportunity to learn how to cope. Here are the references. So we talked about the development of an inventory, and then 2 behavioral and cognitive technique strategies that helped reduce music performance anxiety in adolescents. So thank you very much. So thank you guys, and I hope you enjoyed this this presentation, and I hope it is relatable to your classrooms and usable in your performance techniques. Thanks.